I'm here with Andy Tokley, the chief engineer for the Aston Martin DBX that's behind us, and we are going to take it for a drive. But before we take it for a drive, we're going to ask Andy maybe some of the philosophical elements that went into designing this car. Well, what did you want to do? What was the goal with the DBX from the start?
Yeah, so the goal from the start was to make, the highest performance SUV that competes at the top tier of its class, but not something only that is really high performance, but has a great bandwidth of operation from comfort to performance to off-road, has a very unique design theme to the car that stands out from the crowd, and even more so now with the extravagant colors.
Yeah, you've got great colors on this car, but you can see the lines on this vehicle, and I feel like you've got a lot of super luxury SUVs out there, but this one I feel like pretty distinct. It's got a real long hood, pretty steep windshield angle. Tell me, what was it like to design the car and make it have an Aston Martin look and feel while the practicality of an SUV?
Yeah, so the design studio at Aston Martin did an exceptional job with this vehicle. So we obviously set out the occupancy of the car to meet what is a traditional full-size SUV, but the guys in design did an extremely great job with, let's say, disguising some of the size that normally comes with a big SUV, with very nice, beautiful curbs, some extremely great form down the side of the car, which you don't traditionally see with an SUV. So we've obviously had to employ some different manufacturing techniques, super forming aluminium panels to get this kind of deep form down the side of the car. But it is also all functional in the car as well. So if you'd like, I can talk you through some of the key design engineering elements.
Yeah, tell me what you felt like were the elements that really define what the car's like and how it performs.
Yeah, so if I talk about some of the key changes that we made from 550 to 707, so starting right at the front of the car, you've got the biggest grille that's been seen on an Aston Martin. So this is 30% bigger than the previous car. Not only to make it stand out from the crowd, but to aid the cooling. There's a huge amount of energy with 697 brake horsepower to cool down. So 30% bigger, we get about 50% more cooling airflow through the front end than the previous car. So some of the key engineering changes, new cooling system, and the outboard radiators we've double stacked as well. So you get cool, as in charge cooling in front of like oil cooler on the sides of the car. And then also at the front, you've got two brake cooling elements as well. One hidden in here that routes through up into the wheel arch for a brake cool, and then some more up sweeps under the under tray that are quite hidden that also add cooling airflow to the brake system of the car.
And you tweaked the suspension for 2025, right? The new car has a slightly more tuned suspension.
Yeah, so the hardware is the same, but we've tweaked the suspension controller in the car, and the main tuning philosophy there is keep the active systems out when you don't want them, keep the car nice and comfortable, but when you want to drive fast, we use all the feed forward control, so looking at the steering, the brake, the throttle input, to start reacting all the active systems on the car. We've got obviously quite a number of chassis active systems on the car to, let's say, bend physics for an SUV, for a tall riding heavy vehicle. So I can talk through some of those chassis elements now.
Yeah.
So at the corner of each car, you've got air suspension, but the air springs are not just single volume, they're triple volume air springs, so you can have 4 different spring rates and they switch actively as you drive the car.
Okay.
We've then got fully adaptive two-way adjustable damping, so the rebound and compression damping is totally unlinked and fully active.
Wow.
And then in between each axle as well, instead of a traditional anti-roll bar, we have electric active roll control. So they're 48-volt motors that produce about 1,030 pound-feet of torque each to, let's say, help bend the physics in the roll motion of the car. So this car rolls less than a lot of sports cars.
What about the drivetrain? You're obviously making 697 horsepower, 663 pound-feet of torque. You've had this engine for a while, but you've dropped the smaller engine. Apparently there maybe just wasn't as many people, once they want to this level of an Aston Martin, they went all in with the engine size and there wasn't a lot of demand. Yeah,
exactly. I think when you're at this end of the market, the customer wants the top tier. They want to stand out from the crowd, and the demand for 707 was more than we expected it to be, such that it wasn't worth producing the 550 powertrain anymore, because everyone wanted the higher power.
Right. Well, Andy, this is great. This is great background. We're about to take it for a drive. I'm really looking forward to it, but I appreciate your time, and we'll have, I think, a lot of fun driving this car today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to your driving impressions.
Thanks for your time. Driving the 2025 Aston Martin DBX707. which happens to be the only one you can buy now because the DBX550 has been put out to pasture. Apparently nobody wanted the lowly base model that only made around 500 horsepower. They all were buying the 697 horsepower, 663 pound-feet of torque 707 version like we're in now. So for 2025, that's the only one you get. Hope you have at least $253,000 because that's what it starts at. Now, it's got some interesting specs. It's a very impressive vehicle, whether it's the 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds or the top speed of 193 miles per hour. So this is a dedicated platform, and what they were able to do because of that is they've got an extra long wheelbase, longer than most of these other vehicles, which gives you more interior space, especially rear seat space, and a shorter overhang. So while the car's got 3 inches more wheelbase between the front and rear axles, it's got a shorter front overhang, and that makes it about the same size overall and gives it a lot of the cool styling it's got. It's got a dedicated suspension system. You can independently tune the compression and rebound dampening, and you can't do that for a lot of vehicles. This one you can adjust those independently. It's also got a very interesting anti-roll bar system. It uses a bar, but it's connected to an electric motor at each axle. And the motor makes up to 1,030 pound-feet of torque. And that means it can twist those anti-roll bars as you're going around corners to offset what would otherwise be the lean of the vehicle. Additional changes to the 2025 model year DBX are upgrade to some of the exterior components, really pretty subtle. It does have new exterior mirrors that are smaller, making the overall car a little narrower and more aerodynamic. And it doesn't have a contrasting carbon fiber colored rear spoiler anymore. It is now body colored. The exterior really didn't need anything though. This is an extremely attractive looking super SUV on the outside. What it did need was an interior upgrade. And that's what they've done to it. That's where all the real big changes for 2025 come in. You've got now a dedicated touchscreen in the center and a digital screen in front of the driver that are high definition. They come from the Mercedes-Benz partnership. They also did things like upgrade the steering wheel and new door panels. There's also a new center console with the shifter moved from the dashboard area to the center console, and dedicated buttons for things like climate control and driver modes. Between that and the dedicated buttons on the steering wheel and a big touchscreen, it's a far better control interface than this DBX has ever had before. For 2025, they changed the exhaust system a bit. It now makes more engine note at lower RPM. Aston Martin folks told us specifically that they liked how it sounded, but you had to kind of go full send before you heard it, and they wanted people to hear this beautiful turbocharged V8 at lower RPM. So now you can. Right now I'm piloting the 2025 Aston Martin DBX707 on a rather narrow road with big trees on either side of it. And this is a 5,000 plus pound SUV that would probably and should probably intimidate me to go fast on a road like this. But the truth is, I'm feeling kind of confident and I want to go faster. Wow. Yeah, so again, lots of suspension technology going on underneath this vehicle. The result is a pretty confident ride on a road that you need confidence on to go at any kind of speed. Wow. Those electric motors at each axle are working to keep the car from leaning. The engineer told us that it actually allows a certain amount of lean because it has to, or you won't have a sense of what's going on with the vehicle. It's actually terrible to have no lean in a vehicle. That's what you need to know that you're turning and that you're building up potential pressure to your adhesion level on lateral Gs. So it does lean, but it's a very controlled lean, a very progressive lean, especially if you're in one of the more aggressive driver modes, which is what we are right now. This is actually the driver mode set up by the engineer, you know, where you can do everything independently, steering and suspension and throttle. All that has been independently tuned for this kind of custom setting that he suggested is the best one for this stretch of the press drive. Yeah, this is really, really impressive. I've heard good things about the DBX for years now, that it's one of the better, if not the best handling of these super SUVs. This is my first serious seat time on a serious road. You know, the automakers, they like to pre-drive these roads and find the best ones to illustrate how well their car performs. Surprise, surprise, that's what they like, right? And you look at a road like this and you think, this is not a good road for a 5,000 plus pound SUV to drive rapidly. But it is. At least it is for this 5,000 plus pound SUV. Very impressive suspension technology going on here, and how it results in a nimble utility vehicle that shouldn't go as fast as it does on a road like this, but does. Well, we've confirmed that the Aston Martin DBX707 drives well, and it looks pretty wild too, especially in this color. But we've also confirmed that it's a pretty luxurious car when you're not driving it aggressively around corners. It comes with an 800 watt audio system, Bowers & Wilkins standard, and you can get up to a 1600 watt system with 23 speakers if you really want it. Of course, it's got the giant sunroof, super high quality materials, great contrast stitching inside. And remember, with the Q system at Aston Martin, you can get these things in any color, inside and out, that you want. It's not cheap at $253,000, but it's probably the best execution of the super SUV you can buy right now.